Well, good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful morning. It's 8 o'clock Central on June 6th, 2023. We get together with our distribution partners most weekday mornings at this time to talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories, and support each of you. Today, we have a really exciting announcement that should be shared on my screen if all's going well, and it is about new primary trade lines. So we're going to talk about, of course, legal and ethical and real ways that we can very quickly help clients have a better credit profile. We're going to also talk about credit reporting, kind of goes together. So with that being said, as a service to our clients, we will begin reporting to the consumer and business credit bureaus. I think most of you know this, but there's a set of bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion specifically, that handle consumer reporting. And then there are different bureaus that focus on the business side. So Social Security number related credit is on the consumer side. EIN related credit is on the business side. We're going to begin reporting to both. We're actually hiring a new staff person that's going to focus on that specifically. Moving forward, this will assist our on-time clients by having new on-time trade lines reporting on their personal and business credit reports. So this will allow us, of course, legally and ethically to create new primary trade lines for clients. Well, why would a new trade line be important? I guess we'll keep this highlighted. Why is that valuable? Well, think about this. Let's say that someone has a new business or a newer business that doesn't have any reflection of credit. And so when they go to borrow money or get loans, get lines of credit or other extensions of credit, they don't look too solid, right? That they haven't demonstrated that they can manage credit responsibly. We can now add trade lines to show that the business, or in the other case, personal, have in fact had credit and has managed that credit. So it's incredibly important. So adding positive. Now, the other side of the coin is for folks that don't pay as agreed, then it'll report negative, because we're going to be what's called a data furnisher. So that means that we report directly to the bureaus, personal and business. And so that means we can report good things, but then we also have an obligation to report the bad things when people don't pay as agreed. For us to have gotten approved for this, to be able to be a data furnisher, it was a rather exhaustive process. We had to fill out an application. They even came and did a site survey. So they came to our physical office. They looked at our security and that our shredder was locked up and it's a cross shredder, how we maintain files. And so it's a rather exhaustive evaluation that we had to go through to become a data furnisher. Now we're moving forward. And that's what we're announcing today, that we'll be able to report new positive credit and also negative credit when applicable. So let's talk a little bit about what we'll report on the positive side, and then we'll unfortunately get down to the negative side. So clients making routine payments. Now we have a couple programs that would be applicable. So for example, we have some clients that are on the 0% financing. So in other words, they enrolled in Access to Capital, and if they didn't get any cash funding offers, we promise them at least one trade line. And so that one that we can promise them, because it's within our control, is 0% financing for the refundable deposit. So then they use this and make low $100 payments, and then we're able to build their loan package and move towards the $100,000 guaranteed capital raise. So this is an example of payments that clients are paying for the refundable deposit, and then that will be able to be reported as a positive new trade line. Also, we have our Business Accelerator program. And the Business Accelerator program provides a commercial address for businesses that don't have one. and they just pay a low monthly payment for that address and for mail forwarding. So those are just two examples. I do want to talk a little bit more, though, about how this may be a bigger deal than what you first infer. So when we create new lines of credit, let's take someone, and we'll just pick someone out of the audience, just hypothetically. Let's say we have Pauline, and Pauline is one of our distribution partners. She's on the training, but I'm just making up a theoretical example. Let's say Pauline comes to us as a client looking for funding, but she has high credit card utilization. Maybe she's using 30% or 50%, or worse yet, 100% of her available revolving credit. Well, that does two things to Pauline's credit profile. It reduces her score, but also, even separate from that, it creates a red flag for lenders saying, well, look, she's using a lot of her credit. Maybe she's having trouble making her payments. Maybe she's distressed. But what if we turned around and said, Pauline, how about we give you $100,000 new primary trade line? So that would do what? It would dilute her credit utilization to a crazy extent. I mean, depending upon how much she's already charged up. So again, we won't do anything that's illegal or inappropriate, but there's nothing that prevents us from a data furnisher, an extender of credit, from extending to Pauline a trade line. We can do that legally, ethically. And so we can report that on her personal and or her business. And the benefit to her then is, now in that theoretical example, her revolving utilization has gone from high, most likely, to remarkably low. And so that could, in fact, boost her score by a crazy amount, and also increase her access to capital, because now she doesn't look overly utilized. Another benefit of this approach, by us doing this in-house, is that Pauline wouldn't have to incur an inquiry. Because in most cases in our financial system, if you want to apply for credit to get a new primary trade line, you would have to incur an inquiry. Well, inquiries only account for 10% of the credit score, so it's not a massive hit there, but too many inquiries can make lenders concerned about how you're out shopping for credit. So in this case, without a new inquiry, in this theoretical example, Pauline could have a new $100,000 trade line that reduces her utilization, immediately drives her score up. What we're going to do is report on a weekly basis rather than on a monthly basis. So that's another significant advantage. For most data furnishers, think of credit cards or auto loans, mortgages, so forth. Most of them just report once a month. So what's the problem with that? Well, you pay it down and you got to wait a month until it reflects. Well, our new staff person, which we're hiring this week, will be actually data furnishing on a weekly basis, so we can see those results much more quickly. So are there any questions on the positive reporting before I get down to the other side of the story, derogatory, kind of the downer side? But this is really exciting. So we can reward clients that pay on time, and we can also help clients be able to legally and ethically strengthen their credit profiles, personal and or business, rapidly. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. Anyone have questions on the positive side? If you do, just type it into the Q&A. And then, unfortunately, we have to talk about the other side of the coin, what happens when people don't pay as agreed. Okay, no questions so far, so we'll keep rolling. So let's go ahead and take a look at derogatory. So as a data furnisher, we have a responsibility not only to report positive credit events, but also negative credit events when people don't do what they promise to do. Well, what are some examples of that? And we hope to avoid this and this not even be an issue, of course. But as you know, when we have clients that don't pay as agreed, we litigate. I'll be in court in an hour and 20 minutes, actually, for a case, 9:30. But when we have clients that don't pay, which is unfortunate, we try to resolve it, of course. But if we can't, then we litigate. litigation almost always wins in a successful suit, and then we have a judgment. Well, we can report those judgments on the credit report. So that's a further reason why hopefully people will do the right thing and pay as promised. Also, late payments will have an obligation to report. So for example, we have some people, you'd be surprised by this. You might be amazed by this. We have some people that sign up for the credit and funding program, which is great. Now, there is a refundable setup fee, and we can arrange financing for that if they need. But we have some people that sign up for the credit and funding program, and then they don't pay the refundable setup fee. And it's like, oh my gosh, mayhem. Well, that would be a late payment, and then that would report negatively on their personal and business credit report. We have some people that enroll in Access to Capital. Well, the Access to Capital program has no upfront cost. No upfront cost. It does have a refundable deposit, but we don't collect that until after their first tranche, their first round of funding. You'd be amazed, but we have some people that enroll and either they don't participate or they receive funding and they don't pay their deposit, whatever the scenario. Well, if they don't pay as agreed, then again, that would be a derogatory report on their personal business. So you can see the positive reporting is crazy good, so powerful. We used the Pauline example just a minute ago. I mean, this can take a lot of people that have high utilization, for example, and move them from not being qualified for funding to being qualified simply by adding a new $100,000 primary trade line. I mean, it's huge. This is a big difference maker. The problem is when people don't pay as agreed, we have a responsibility to also report that. Performance fees. So when we help clients raise capital through credit and funding or Access to Capital, both of these programs, we guarantee in writing a minimum of $100,000 capital raise. That's awesome, right? And they don't pay in advance, they pay afterwards, kind of just like you'd pay a realtor if at closing, if they sold you or sold a home for you. So the performance fees are due after funding. You'd be surprised, you'd be amazed, you probably would be disappointed. Some people don't pay as agreed. So again, that would be an example of derogatory reporting. We have the business startup program, which is awesome. It's awesome. There's so much value to it. You'd be surprised. We have some people that enroll and then they don't pay their deposit. Well, if they don't pay their deposit, we'll go through the litigation process and get a judgment against them, but also it'll report negatively. So again, this isn't meant to be negative or threatening. It's just we have a responsibility as a data furnisher. We need to report positive things when they occur, and we're also expected to report derogatory or negative items when they occur. It's the two sides of the coin. We have small business consultants. Most of you on our training are small business consultants. We love you. We treasure you. We love working with motivated professionals like each of you. And when you each came aboard, we said, hey, there's a license fee, but you know what? We'll waive it. We don't want you to pay that license fee. Don't want you to pay it. We'll perpetually waive it. But just come in after 30 days of grace period. Let's be active. Let's be helping at least 2 clients a week. Again, you'd be amazed. We have some people that sign up as a small business consultant. They have access to all the training and resources and support, but some of them do nothing. Well, and again, in those cases, they would be responsible for the license fee, and it's not a big deal. Okay, well, we'll invoice you for that. But if they don't pay that, then what's going to happen? It's going to be a derogatory reporting on their personal and business credit reports. So the main message I want to share with you is the positive side, the Pauline example. This is exciting. This is great. This provides even more value. I think some of you would say infinitely more value to our proposition to help clients become fundable. In addition to building their business plans and financial projections and helping them add collateral and those other elements, this is crazy good, crazy good. But also, I just want to be transparent. It also brings forth the derogatory reporting, our obligation to report on their personal and business profiles if they don't pay as agreed. But we'll work with them, and I'm sure that'll be a minimal issue. This will be a crazy good issue for all of us. Now, let's go ahead and dispel one idea. Here's what I've seen in the past. We haven't really gotten that involved with credit reporting in the past, especially on the negative side, because there's credit repair companies and some of them are pretty good. And so some people say, go ahead and report negative. I'll just get it taken off. Well, we wanted to take the time to plan for that. And so we have actually built the model to be called credit repair proof. What does that mean? Well, as I mentioned, some people disregard the impact of derogatory items because they just frankly plan to have those items removed. They're clever or crafty, and even though they owe the amount, they have ways or work with companies that have ways to remove those negative items. So what happens then? Well, the derogatory reporting doesn't matter much if someone knows how to, or hires someone that knows how to remove judgments, late payments, collections, charge-offs, so forth. So as we built the model, we wanted to protect against that. And so we have an innovative approach leveraging the Fair Credit Reporting Act, as I'll describe now. So the Fair Credit Reporting Act is federal, not state or local. And what it states is that only information that's unverifiable, inaccurate, or misleading may be disputed. So what does that mean? So any of us, you, me, any of us right now could challenge anything on our credit report. That's our legal right. And we could require Experian or Equifax or TransUnion or Dun & Bradstreet, whoever, we could challenge them and say, hey, prove that what you're reporting is verified, that it's accurate, and that it's timely. So that's the way credit repair normally works, is they'll go dispute things on credit reports, and often the reporting entity won't take the time or doesn't have the level of detail of data to meet these requirements. So then what happens is those items come off because of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And that's good. That's a good consumer protection law. But in our case, we're going to flip that over. So in our case, we have all the information. We would never, ever, ever report anything that is unverifiable, inaccurate, or misleading. We won't do it. Therefore, any attempt that a credit repair company or an individual uses would be illegal. So again, can they challenge it? Of course, that's the nature of credit. But we're going to require them to provide a sworn statement that what they're saying is true. In other words, challenging the accuracy of our information, which will always be accurate. So what happens if they make a sworn statement that's inaccurate? Well, then we will file a civil case against the credit repair company and individual because they're breaking the law. They're saying that something is untrue when it is true. And then secondly, we will refer to the prosecuting attorney for criminal charges, and it's called a willful FCRA violation. Most people don't know about this. But essentially, if you try to manipulate credit profiles, it's frankly pretty much considered fraudulent. And so with that, then they're subject to possibly imprisonment, but certainly $1,000 violation, as well as punitive damages. So let's recap. What we're here to discuss is something really positive. We are now going to be a data furnisher, which means that we can add new primary trade lines and do credit reporting. That is great for you. That's great for our clients. There's two sides of that in summary. Positive reporting, getting new positive trade lines, primary trade lines added to personal credit reports and business credit reports. That's huge. That's huge in accelerating the access to capital for our clients. This is incredibly valuable. It's a big deal, But also for people that don't pay as agreed, then we have an obligation to report that as well. And we don't want to spend as much time on that, but just understanding that people who don't pay as promised will have derogatory reporting, which will worsen their credit situation. Now, we don't want to do that. We just want them to do what they promised to do. And then lastly, we spent a few minutes in summary talking about how we made this credit repair proof. Because again, what we know is a lot of people are kind of clever, kind of devious, or somewhere in between. And they think, I don't care, reports negative items on my credit, doesn't matter to me. But in fact, when they can't have the items removed legally, and if they try anything illegal, then they will face consequences. So, of course, our contact information is here on the bottom, and that hasn't changed. We have 2 new staff people going to be joining us this week. We have a young lady that is in training now, and she'll be coming aboard as a new client service manager. So we'll make a formal announcement most likely next week. And then we are hiring another young lady that's going to be managing essentially the credit department, handling the reporting of positive and negative items. So we'll make some formal introductions to them a bit later, but they'll both be full-time W-2 employees. So who has questions, comments, concerns on new primary trade lines and credit reporting? Any questions, comments, concerns? Because these are big deals. Why is it a big deal? In summary, well, as a small business consultant, you want to have more arrows in your quiver, more ways that we're able to help clients qualify for funding. And this certainly does that. And then also, as a small business consultant, you want to make sure that the clients that you refer in do what they promise to do, so you get paid. And the derogatory reporting helps ensure that. Who has questions, comments, concerns? All right, Chuck's asking about some of the legality issues. And so you're right, Chuck, there's laws that regulate furnishing data and even doing credit pulls. And so we have to follow all of those. And so the young lady that we're hiring that's going to manage the credit department, she already has a strong background in that, but she'll be focused on the compliance aspects. So we will not do anything that's gray. We won't do anything that's wrong, but we will leverage what's right to help our clients. And new positive reporting is incredibly valuable. And then, of course, making sure that you and I get paid, the derogatory reporting is also valuable. But Chuck added the weekly reporting is a game changer. That's huge. You're going to find very few data furnishers that report on a weekly basis, and that increases our value. So again, those of you that have a credit background will realize when we talk about adding new positive trade lines, primary trade lines, that's huge. It's incredibly important. Those of you maybe not as familiar with credit, maybe it doesn't mean much to you, but it's a big deal. Okay, so Holly asked, do you recommend that these new trade lines are utilized? Well, so it depends. So again, we will never just make up a trade line. The trade line has to be attributable to something. So let's say that we have a client that enrolls in the Access to Capital program. No cost up front, no cost up front. We promise to collect the refundable deposit after their first tranche, their first round of funding. So then we go out and we get them funding offers. We've had success stories recently where many of these clients are getting 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 different cash funding offers, but some get 0 cash funding offers. If they get 0 cash funding offers, Holly, then we offer them 0% financing in-house. So they're paying that refundable deposit directly to us over time, $100 payment, 0% interest. And so that is spread over 25 payments, $2,500 divided by $100 payments. So 25 payments. So during that time, then that would report as a primary trade line. And so then each time they make a payment on time, of course, that's reflected, and that continues to build and build and build their credit. Now, let's say that someone wants a larger trade line than just 2,500. We can legally and ethically build a model whereby it's as large as 100,000. That's our cap that we've been approved for. But I'm telling you, if you know anything about credit, adding a new $100,000 primary revolving trade line is huge. So in answering Holly's question, we will work with the client to get them what they need. They'll make payments as promised, and then that will allow for the data reporting. And so Holly's question was, well, would they use that trade line? Well, this is an example where they would use it, right? So they needed funding for the $2,500 refundable deposit. We extended them that credit. And so then they're making payments of $100. And each time they do, it's reported as a positive event. So yes, they would use that. Now, if they have a $100,000 approval and they're only using $2,500 for this, of course, then what would that be? The math would be 97,500 is unused, 2,500 is used. Great question, Holly. Hopefully I answered it well enough. Anyone else have feedback? Well, what are your thoughts? Those of you that have a credit background, would you agree with me that being able to add new primary trade lines is insanely valuable? Anyone have questions or feedback on that? It's huge. It's absolutely huge for the example that I gave, if no other, of Pauline's example. And we have some others of you that are on training today that have gone through, and you have high revolving utilizations. You've got high credit card debt, and it's a barrier because your credit score is lower and your borrowing capacity is reduced. Well, now we'll be able to fix that. All right, any questions on the positive reporting, the derogatory reporting? So again, our new customer service manager will be starting, and she's going to be reaching out to those individuals that have not paid as agreed, especially in addition to her other duties, and say, hey, Joe, or hey, Susie, you've not paid as you agreed. Do you have questions? Do you understand what we promised to do? Do you understand what you promised to do? What can we do to resolve it? So we're going to make every effort to try to resolve it so these individuals are not harmed with a new derogatory, because that's not what we want. We want to do what we promised to do. We want them to do what they promised to do. But if they don't resolve it, then there's going to start to be late payments. All right, Timothy asked about aged primary trade lines, and that's a sensitive topic. So while what I said is true, for example, on Pauline's example, so if as of today, June 6, 2023, we added a $100,000 primary trade line that reported, that is great because of the benefits we've talked about. The question we have is, well, could that be backdated? Could that have been effective a year ago or 2 years ago, because aging makes a difference? Well, there's some rules we have to follow in that regard. So in some cases, the answer is yes, it could be backdated. In some cases, no, we'll have to look at the client circumstances specifically. But if it's legal, we'll do it. And if it's not legal, we won't do it. But yes, in some cases, we can backdate some of these some of this reporting, and that makes it even more powerful, because then of course now we have a history of positive payments already reporting. But again, we'll have to look at the individual client circumstances to see if that's possible. All right, Aziz says trade lines are a great thing to do. Yeah, thank you, positive, for that feedback, positive feedback. Any other questions, comments, concerns? From your perspective, there's nothing different that you need to do. You know, from the front end, what we would recommend, those of you that are small business consultants, keep it simple. Go out to the marketplace and introduce the free funding proposal. There's a 3-part training for that on the career page of Guaranteed Funding. Right here, you can see it. And I would just lead with that. This is more back-end information that I want you to be aware of, because we want to be transparent with you, but it really doesn't change. It's not like we're out selling primary trade lines. That's not the case at all. So this doesn't change, in my opinion, what you do when you go out to the marketplace. But what it does do is adds value to the client relationship. And it also increases the probability of all of us being paid when people have another level of accountability. which would be the negative reporting. Any questions, comments, concerns? All right. Well, I'm going to get ready for court. You all have a great day, and we will see you back tomorrow morning. Thank you. Bye-bye.